I know she was in the breakout room with us, Leonardo.
I can see her. She's just muted.
Oh, okay.
So Gail, if you would unmute yourself. Gail, you're muted. There you go.
I think I'm unmuted now.
All right.
A bit of a struggle with the technology today. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Tower Federal Credit Union, as Leonardo had said, great supporter of GovConnects. Care a lot about the program. Think it's great in terms of the folks that it attracts and brings together for thought and also for action. Tower has provided financial services since 1953 to the NSA and all of our government contracting partners, of which we have many. And I'm delighted to be here today to introduce our speaker. It's my privilege. So let's move on. I want to introduce Dr. Scott R. Dade, Chief J54 Partnerships, Cyber National Mission Force, USCYBERCOM, who has over 35 years of experience in diverse work environments with the U.S. Air Force, Bank of America, the National Security Agency, and USCYBERCOM. He retired from the U.S. Air Force after 20 years of active service. Thank you for your service, Dr. Dade. He supported operations across the globe, whether it was preparing F-11Fs for Operation El Dorado Canyon in Libya, multiple tours with U.S. Air Force Special Operations in Central America, leading up to the invasion of Panama with his beloved AC-130 gunships, or supporting A-10 and F-16 operations in the Pacific Theater. His love of learning and strong desire to train and develop others took him away from operations and maintenance and into the classroom to design, develop, deliver, and evaluate technical and professional development programs for 30,000 next generation leaders each year until his retirement from the U.S. Air Force at Maxwell Air Force Base in 2002. Currently, Dr. Dade is serving in USCYBERCOM by way of NSA, one of my favorite organizations, which he joined in 2012. He has led multiple teams in the development of and analysts hired to retire career path and multi-level certifications accepted across the intelligence community. He left his comfort zone to lead the redesign of an entire information systems network, supporting and recruiting, training, and deployment of analysts to hostile parts of the world. He moved to USCYBERCOM, where he leveraged rapid acquisition processes and tools to drive innovation through partnerships, prototyping, and development of future cyber capabilities. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dade.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. It is an honor to be here. I'm going to have to work on shortening that bio. I'm so sorry, Gail, to have to read all of that.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Are you kidding? That's a lot of wonderful experience. It should be lauded.
Thank you. So yes, it's quite an honor to be here today. It is. I always like talking about some of the great stuff that we're doing over there at the CyberCom and NSA, and now the Cyber National Mission Force. They asked me for a bio, and it's just like I did a quick change on that, but I didn't change the title of the deck that you're going to see. So that's from my old job, and then we went through a reorg. All this really neat stuff. Typical federal government type thing. Once you get comfortable, expect a change. It's all good. So. If we're going to have the slides up so that I can run them and I know which one we're on, and then I can just go right into this. So we were going to have them presented. Aha. And we're almost there.
I was going to say, Lynn, I think I was going to say, go to your left.
There you go. No.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, right there.
Yeah,
that's
there
it.
you go. Aha. Okay. So again, I was talking about reorgs. That's why I slid that in. We changed names. I think the last name that we were called was Discovery Outreach. Again, we're looking for in this case, this part of the Cyber Command was looking for new technologies that have cyber impact, some type of tie to cyber, i.e. US Cyber Command. Cybersecurity, cyber tech, however you want to look at it, it's all very intertwined. As you can imagine, the federal government has many, many, many different agencies and organizations and military that work on and deal with different aspects of cyber. So what the job was and what we were doing there, if you could go ahead, let's go to the next one. Next slide, please. Ooh, look at that fade. Okay, good. So really to understand what we were doing is what do we need, where do we get it, and how do we go get it? Obviously, we've got to reach out, whether that's interagency, foreign partners, foreign governments. I do a lot of business. I've spoken to a lot of the trade delegations and so forth that come in from our Five Eyes partners. And of course, there's our everyday mom and pop shop, one guy in a garage who's developing his own IP, where we want to talk to them too. So we've developed, Cyber Command developed a number of different programs to try to get at that. We want to do is, especially Dreamport, which you'll hear about a little later, is to lower that barrier of entry to businesses so that they can come work with us to defend the nation. So next slide, please. So just a little bit about US Cyber Command and what the heck is Cyber Command? I mean, I'll be honest, when I went over there, I had to have them stop and try to tell me and define this numerous times, because it's just like, so we're defending the nation, but we're defending the DoDIN, and then there's these combat support. You know, how does this all work? Well, it has to do with the idea and concepts of offensive and defensive operations. And you have to have and then there's the whole thing we go into, like defend forward and persistent engagement. These are terms you may or may not have heard of, depending on how much you're involved with the federal government in the cyber world. Not everybody's into that, and that's okay. But I'll just, quickly across the top, some of the three pillars is defending the nation against strategic cyber attack, operate and defend the DoDIN, and then support the combatant commands. With that, we do offensive and defensive cyber operations, and then DoDIN operations. DoDIN is really the Department of Defense Information Network. So everything that links us all together, the different domains from unclassified to secret to top secret, you have to protect all of that, and it's all different and has to be separated. So those are some idea on the DoDIN operations. And then with that, how do we do that? We leverage Cyber National Mission Forces. DISA, you may have heard of, Defense Information Service Agency. We work with them, and they have cyber protection forces. And then the cyber combat mission forces. So yes, it's very complicated. We have to explain that to new folks. You can imagine a general who's never dealt with cyber and comes in and he says, so how do I get cyber? Well, that depends. What type of cyber do you want? Where are you sitting? What are you trying to do? What's your mission? So there's a lot of questions. So this is just a real quick blurb to give you some idea. Hopefully it didn't confuse you too much. And I'm going to move kind of quickly, because if I don't, this will take way too long. So next slide, please. And I'll be happy with questions later. So from the outreach perspective, who do we deal with? We deal with the military services, industry, academia, the research community, and rest of government. Industry is a broad spectrum. Industry is from small to large. I talk with Northrop Grumman and Verizon and Microsoft, all the way down to those mom and pop shops that I mentioned earlier. Ultimately, what we were trying to do is find those capabilities that will enhance the mission, that get to the warfighter to do their job. So mission critical cyber capabilities is our output, and that's what we're looking for from the command. Go ahead, next slide, please. So this is the pretty slide. I like it. It's got nice, pretty colors. It's fairly well organized. Had a guy who was really talented build this out for us, and I always just give it to. He's moved on to bigger and better things. But so how do we define what in the heck we're looking for? So we're looking for things that we just devised a set of challenge questions, and you can find these challenge questions. There's an unclassified version that's out on the USCYBERCOM website. It tells you to go to technical outreach, I believe on there. There's a link, and then these challenge questions are there. If you were to send a request to engage with Cybercom at cybercom.mil, you'll get sent back a little message saying, hey, we're interested in your technology. Please fill out this form. And that breaks down the things we need to know to determine, does this meet one of our challenges, cyber challenges? And we ask that you look at that website and the link and to go say, okay, it meets challenge in number 1, number 5, and number 8. Cool. And then we can look at that. We have a contract where I actually pay some really smart people, much smarter than I am, to really look at and peel back the onion on what it is you're offering, what you say it will do, what you think it will do. And I want to give you another. It's kind of a little disappointing, but it doesn't matter what you've got. It could be the best thing in the world, but I can tell you right now, we can't take it from your basement and put it on our networks. It doesn't work like that. It has to be modified, tweaked, checked, evaluated, tested, and certain things added to it, no matter how good it is, before it will be allowed on the network. So just to give you a sense that it's not something we're gonna say, oh, we like you and we'll give you some money here and then we're gonna use your product tomorrow. Doesn't work like that. So there's work to be done on the inside, no matter how good it is. There's different ways to determine what technology readiness level is, and there's a slide, I'll talk about that a little bit. Other needs that we look at come from inside, comes from the actual operators. So they're saying, I've got this tough problem. We need to get in and see who the bad guy, what they're thinking and what they're doing. And then I need to be able to, so they'll write up a request, and that's all internal. It's all top secret, but that's all I can say about that. So what we do is we look out there into the services, the industry, academia. What are they doing? What's going on? Who's got stuff? We have a way to take direct input from that Engage with CyberCom that I mentioned. And there's also our ability to go out and search. We leverage a number of different avenues and venues and tools to do that searching. Ultimately, just like I was talking about, where if it came in through Engage with CyberCom, we're going to evaluate that to determine if it's going to meet our needs. And then what's the technology like? And then we have ways of doing things like pilots and prototyping. And then Dreamport is a big aspect of that for us. And Dreamport's more than just testing a capability that comes in the door. And I'll talk more about Dreamport a little bit later to delay too much on this slide. But that's one of the big things. It's in Howard County, right in the business park. You can drive by it, and it does have the sign Dreamport on it. That's an actual picture of the building. It looks a lot like most of the other buildings in there, so it's easy to miss if you don't know what you're looking for. It is something you can walk right in. It's an unclassified facility. It was designed that way on purpose to allow accessibility of a various level partners. And then we have classified technical things that we've got a cyber immersion lab that's behind the fences. And that's where we normally take things. If we find it on the outside, it has to go there to be really torn apart, looked at, figured out what its vulnerabilities are. Do we already know things? What code did they use? What does it need to be modified to run on the network? That kind of thing. All of this information that we gather goes into what we call the Athena Knowledge Management System. That system, or knowledge repository at the bottom, is kept and available to USCYBERCOM, NSA, other government agencies, and our partners, the Surface Cyber Components. And that way, when they're out there going, we need this, they can go to this repository. And let's say your company submitted something, or somebody you know, and maybe we didn't use it right away, but it's in that knowledge base. And then if they have a need, they can reach out to you directly, or that company, to find out what they have, what they did, and show interest. So that's kind of why we have that down there. So let's say it tests out really good. I go back to my mission partners and say, hey, we really got something good here. We think you can use it. It matches a need. I need one of you to kind of own this. This is what you wanted. This is what you said you wanted. And the bottom line for everything, do you have money? And then I tied in with my portfolio managers who are in charge of large portfolios of different areas of interest. We test and do a final test and developments. We determine if the funded research is something we want to go through the prototyping and how to fund that. And then also there is the whole buy, build, and share. If we can get it from a government off the shelf that already exists to do something we need, we'll go ahead and leverage that. Finally, we talk a little bit about piloting. We can do different types of pilots, and we can bring those in and use them. And then finally, the ultimate thing is deploy it during a mission and see if it's successful. So that's kind of the process flow there on, who do we deal with and how do we deal with them and so forth. Next slide, please. All right, this kind of goes with you've already may have heard the build and buy decisions, but if we need something now, we can buy it, we can borrow it, or we can share it. That's government off the shelf, that's commercial products, or or markets where we can get those. We're looking at that timeline in between 0 and 3 or so months. You'll notice that the blue arrows that kind of hop over each other at the bottom, there is overlap between the different ways we get to it. Our targeted hunt operations are usually for those things that are 0 to 3 months. We got to have it now. We got to have something that works, and then we do our final testing, and then we get it to the operators, and that they can use it. So that's why we kind of label that whole left third block is to describe how that works, and we call that our targeted hunt for capabilities. Then, your near term. We need it in near term. I don't have to have it today, but I need a really good product to get after a problem. We're looking at new releases of existing solutions, next versions, new product development that's right on the edge. I have a couple of different ways. Dreamport is one of the avenues that we use for that. There's the Defense Innovation Unit that works with all of DoD that helps us find those capabilities and companies that are right there, just ready. It is something we can use, but it's going to need some minor tweaks. And that timeline starts to go out 3 to 12 months, 6 to 18 months or so forth. And also just at the bottom there, you'll notice that in yellow it says In-Q-Tel. In-Q-Tel is a major tool that the command uses, and as well as NSA uses. They've been around the intelligence agency for 20 years, and they are good at what they do. I'll talk more about them. I got some slides at the end that to describe, but they leverage their own money. They use venture capital funds. They do seed investing. They put people on the boards of these small companies. They help these companies evolve, and they work with, and for the command, and for me, when I was running this department, is the cost sharing, because we're sharing the cost with different agencies to keep the cost down to the to the command. Let's say there's some recent work programs we got involved with through In-Q-Tel, where the whole program was over $2 million to take this technology and evolve it to a point where we could use it. My cost was only $500K. So that's a $1.5 million save for USCYBERCOM because I'm dealing with In-Q-Tel. That way I can get more capabilities in the door at a reduced cost. So that's one of the benefits of that. And then finally, you've got our next. That's where we invest in more in the long term. We collaborate with partners that sometimes takes, again, more time. And then there's the research community out there. There's the Air Force Research Labs, the Army Research Labs, your colleges and universities where they're doing, really kind of much further out. In-Q-Tel still plays in this space a little bit more, but they're more in the near, but sometimes in the next, just because it takes a while. And then that's brand new products, new designs. I read dollars from the bigger companies that they have set aside that they use for this, and then our science and technology community. So that's sometimes 12 to 24, 18 to 36 months. We have to plan for that. It's very difficult when most of the world is, what have you done for me lately, and how do we justify the budget for next year? When I'm trying to talk about 3 years out. So always a challenge, but that's kind of just to give you a sense of timelines and some of our relationships of who we were doing business with. Next slide, please. All right, I mentioned, now I'm trying to remember if we did this in the group or if I mentioned it at all, but so Missy, and so USCYBERCOM has a deal, and maybe you've heard about this Dreamport thing. I mentioned that earlier. Well, Dreamport is a partnership intermediary agreement that we have with the Maryland Innovation and Security Institute. Maryland Innovation Security Institute is our partner. What we do is we pay them a certain amount of money. We give them a rough sketch of what we want from them per year. And then basically we turn it over to them with our guidance and our input, but they then go out and solve problems for us. Whether it's bringing in companies that have tech, pulling in subject matter experts to work, to collaborate on a project, pull in people from ODNI and FBI and CIA, and so they're able to do things out there because they're a nonprofit. They're able to take technology from NVIDIA and bring people in, subject matter expert from Ireland, and then drag Microsoft and IBM together into a collaborative project and maybe some local small businesses and work out something that what we call as a mission acceleration. Those collaborative projects usually are something that's going on behind the fence, top secret, all quiet, can't talk about it, but they have an unclassified section of part of that project that we feel that with the help of others, we can accelerate that under normal development conditions with all the other priorities inside, it's going to take us 2-3 years to do. So, but if we come outside and we look at and we break out that unclassified section and bring in all these other partners and really great ideas from smart people, we can accelerate the development of that idea, that capability, or whatever it is. And they work, and that's something that can be done out there in the Dreamport facility in Columbia, Maryland. So that's kind of that relationship of how we work with others. Those CPOs now, this is something that how we work with other like interagency work. We have the JAIC out there, Joint Artificial Intelligence Center. They needed some work. They were doing it unclassified. They came with money. They had a project. We used a collaborative project order to fund that out there at the Dreamport facility. We like to say Dreamport is a nonprofit. It doesn't mean it works for free. So there still has to be money in to support the efforts that go on out there. And what we do that, how we put those together, whether it's the JAIC or it's OSD, small business, ODNI, there's Cyber, lots of other organizations come and do work there, or they provide money and some subject matter expertise, and they have a problem. They pull all this together to work on these collaborative projects, and that's why CPO stands for Collaborative Project Order. And that's part of how we fund that. It's a little bit of the internal mechanisms, but it does say that, hey, you know, if you have a contract with CyberCom or NSA or the JAIC or OSD, and they're doing something, you might find yourself out there in a project at Dreamport. Next slide, please. So what the heck is this Dreamport thing? Some of this I've already said. So it's unclassified cyber collaboration venue entered into a via partnership intermediary agreement, PI, I said that already, with nonprofit entity, Maryland Innovations. I think I've done this presentation, so I start blending in different slides and information. I guess it's a place, again, it's a place for interaction and collaborative project for government partners, academia, industry. I said all this. That's the picture of the building. Next slide, please. A little bit more about what MISSI and Dreamport is. It's been open for a little over 2 years. The state-of-the-art cyber prototype and collaboration managed by MISSI. We do testing, integration, and fabrication labs in there. The cyber ranges and test networks. We've done a huge amount of virtual work. They still have rapid prototyping events. They do ad hoc demonstration centers. We do showcases. Sometimes there's an area, and I'll just use, everybody's familiar with AI if you're into cyber at all. And we'll pull in 12 different companies that are doing unique things with AI. And then we'll have them do a showcase of what, show their wares. That's tied to those challenge questions and the different needs that the command has. We'll walk out them. I think Dreamport's going to be handling an industry day for the command this spring or summer this year. So that's you'll hear about that. That'll go out through different channels that they'll be bringing in and having an industry day. So tons of industry, hopefully COVID allowing, we'll be doing that this spring, early summer. It probably will be a combination of virtual and in person. I'm not tied to exactly the planning on that. I just know I'm aware that they were getting ready to set that up and there was approval to do it, but I don't have the timeline. So I can't really talk to that in detail, and especially since I just changed jobs. Next slide, please. So this goes to those challenge problems. There's 44 unclassified technical challenge problems posted on the USCYBERCOM website. That's what, if you're a company who thinks that they have something and wants to do business with Cybercom, that's where you want to go. You'll notice that it's got the website there, www.cybercom.mil, Partnerships and Outreach, Technical Outreach Division. That's what I used to run. And then 2020. So this is a slightly dated slide. I had the other one, and then we decided to show this one, so I know it's approved, but the 2020s are out there, and that's what you'd find actually on the website is the 2020 version. It spans 6 categories. You notice it's vulnerabilities and exploits, network security, monitoring, visualization, modeling and predictive analytics, persona and identity management, cross-domain permeability and agility, and infrastructure and transport. With some of the current events, things going on around the world, I think it's hard to avoid it. I mean, them hitting the water plant down there in Florida just recently, that made the news. This kind of stuff is very real. Last fall, we did a Hack the Building event where Coptic, who rents a lot of space in government buildings and different things like that that are used by the government, they gave or donated to Missy the use of one of the 150,000 square foot building. Missy and Dreamport then, along with the OSD, put that all together and then had okay, hi. We're not very good at Cybers yet, but we want to. That's on my back burner to try to work from my new job. Cybers cool, like it. Lack the resources to employ that. So sorry, I got a little chat question up there and I thought I could answer it very quickly. So the 150,000 square foot building, from parking lot to the loading docks, to your elevators, to your power generators, to your lights, to your cameras, to your alarm systems, to the networks that are involved, all of that was made available. And then we set up some scenarios. We put in different vulnerabilities. And I think there were 52 teams from all over the world that came, and they were turned loose to try to attack this thing. And then you had teams that were also designed that they had to defend. I think one of the big things we learned from that is that the people really don't understand the difference between IT, IoT, infrastructure, all the different systems and tools. I mean, for instance, you're in your labs or your manufacturing labs, that robot arm, it can be hacked. That manufacturing that's printing out a circuit board can be modified to change the thermodynamics of the chips that are on it so that they fail at certain times. So they can get in, they can monitor you through the security system. So these things, there's a whole area that I don't mean to scare people, but there's a lot of stuff out there, whether you're talking our buildings, our infrastructure, our water supplies, all that kind of stuff. Cyber's more than just, did somebody get in, did they do a phishing attack and get your email and hack your Facebook account? There's so much more that's going on out there. And that's what the federal agencies and so forth are trying to focus on. That's why it costs so much too, because there's so much out there. All right, next slide. So I think, I've talked about how to engage with Cybercom, and we put together a couple slides. This is the one, if you want to get to USCYBERCOM, get a chance to review your tech, this is how you do this. It's right on the screen. Engage with Cybercom at cybercom.mil is also the email. So you can send an email directly to that, or you can go up and use that website and find out those challenge problems. If you go straight to the email, they're going to tell you, please go to the challenge problems and tell us which ones you think you can solve. So just to kind of tell you how that kind of goes back together. And next slide. And if you want to engage Cybercom through Dreamport, this is how you do that. You register at Missy Dreamport website at www.dreamport.tech to receive updates and announcements. Now that updates and announcements is really important because that's where you're going to find out about a showcase that's going on there. That's what you're going to talk about at the next collaborative project, the next rapid prototyping event where we're inviting different companies in. The reason that one of the things that's so special about Dreamport is they can have, what we can do there, and this is how we leverage fair and open competition, is if it's advertised on the site and if people respond, that's fair and open competition. Then they go in and they can do, let's say we run a rapid prototyping event. Well, the winner of that event now has met many of the conditions to go to contract. I'm not saying we're going to immediately go to contract with you, but we have. And if at that point we determine that this is a capability we want, in fact, it's so good, we're going to go to contract. So they can do it that way. That can accelerate things. Mission acceleration, that is what a part of what's so key about Dreamport is it helps us with. They're not tied up with, this ultimately to go to contract, we still have to go inside and do that. But through the partnership intermediary agreement, through these different types of ways of getting fair competition and so forth, we're able to speed up the process versus the FAR-based process, which is cumbersome and everybody hates it. But hey, and then finally, there was some things that we were doing when we could get there in person more often. I'm hoping that, we're only a few months maybe away from being able to do those again, but every second and fourth Friday, they would have what they called a cyber coffee and conversation. And then you can just walk in the door, get some free coffee from a barista who makes some really good coffee, by the way. And usually there's some, little snacks and so forth. And you can walk up and talk to the CEO of companies. You can talk to folks from the government, folks like myself who would normally be out there, and just chat and get to know folks and get to know what's going on in the community. And, the cyber community is open. I will say that it's up about what your ideas are and who you are, not, and what you have to offer. not anything more than that. There's too many. We all are needed for the fight. We're all are needed and can participate in this world. You know, the internet it can be a wonderful thing. It also can be a very dangerous place. And it takes all of us working together to protect ourselves and our country. So you can also go on the site and request a Dreamport tour. There's on the Dreamport website. So that's another way. So those, I just want to lay all that out there. That's, I think, the last slide. Go ahead and slide forward. I think it's probably just like questions or something like that, if anything. Yep, the big question mark. So Leonardo, I hope that was interesting and entertaining for the group. I will do my best to answer any questions I can. And I will also defer if I cannot. I will tell you what I can tell you. And if I can't tell you, I'll tell you that I can't tell you.
Hey, well, thank you, Scott. And I know for me, if nothing else, I actually learned a new acronym today. I've seen it on things, but never knew exactly what DoDIN was. And so
you're not alone.
Yeah. So we do have one question here in the chat, and that is whether or not you pursue or engage in any way with challenge.gov to help government solve big or small problems. And if so, I would actually even say for those maybe like myself, I'm not familiar with challenge.gov.
I'm not either. Sounds like a great idea. I think that was something that I will go back and tell my former colleagues that they need to look into. I will try to look into it myself, actually. So just to give you a sense, we stood up Dreamport, the relationship with In-Q-Tel and DIU, and built that team that could reach out and evaluate capabilities, go to conferences, interact with all of this in all these different forms with about 3 people. So you can just get a sense, you know, and then there's contractor teams that support us, like Dreamport and the Missy construct. They have there's only like 8 people at Dreamport and everything they do. And they're all contractors. So there's not a lot of resources or people behind doing this type of function. It's kind of scary that, you know, with the responsibility that we have, that we're so limited in resources, but you know, it is what it is. So for those 3 people, we worked our butt off to accomplish and establish and stand up a lot of those tools and those accessibilities. And you know, the team that's taking over for me, because almost my whole team is moving on. We were built out a lot of NSAers who were doing special assignments over at CyberCom, and after 2 years, there's a program that you have to go back home. You got to go back to NSA. This wasn't just a free loan for the heck of it. It's just like we wanted folks, and that happened for me. I came over and learned a whole new world in CyberCom that I had no idea about when I was working in NSA. And the connections that I make back to NSA and what I'll take back there are what the NSA gets out of it by giving the people over there. That, you know, hey, Tom, remember when we were working on such and such? Well, they're trying to do that over here. Oh, really? Hey, where did that end up? Oh, you got to talk to Betty. Okay, call Betty. You know, and then so you have this networking and, you know, typing and you bring in stuff and say, "Are you working on that now?" "Yeah." "Hey, we had a great development on that." "Cool. Let me tell you." You know, so you get that network and those relationships they built. So much of this stuff, whether you're in the government or outside the government, is relationship based. You've got to be able to connect with people. You got to be able to get them to share with you, and then you share with them. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned is that there's a lot of people out there doing this. There's a lot of people with really good hearts and their minds are in good places. And it's merely reaching out and touching them and then building that trust that, hey, you know, you're not going to screw me over. You really want to do business. You know, what does that look like in being open and honest? I have a tendency to probably be a little bit too open and honest, but that's just me. It's who I am. So
Leonardo, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
One of my 2-part question, please. The first one is those Monday or Friday coffee and conversation sessions over at Dreamport, number 1, in the pandemic, are they in person or have they gone virtual? And my second piece is I have a 20-year-old here at my house, 3rd year in college, comp sci, cyber focus, and he dreams about working in somebody's cyber command.
Ooh, cool.
If the Dreamport pieces are open, is that a place that you would say, go there, visit, shake hands, kind of get to know those people, or are any interns open anywhere in your command in this season for next summer?
Okay, so I'll try to break this down. So we had to suspend the in-person ones.
Okay.
I am sure that when they get the okay, they will open those up again.
Okay.
Right now, we're following all the guidance out there, CDC, how many you can have in a room and so on and so forth. It's a 40,000 square foot facility. And we're able to have breakout rooms in different areas where you can put 10 people for a meeting, but they're still limited at this time. They went to a virtual for a while, but virtual's, it's tough. It doesn't quite accomplish the same thing. So I think they just put that on hold. So
Okay.
look for it to come back.
Okay.
And I think look for it to come back when they can have it in person. Now, to your 20-year-old, so I'll share a little story. I got a 29-year-old who's married with 2 kids, who's going into the Army Reserves, who's going to do cyber. He's going to boot camp here in March. So we're excited about that. And then my 33-year-old he's changing careers, and he's going out and doing some certifications on his own in cyber so that he can get in. There is a huge, huge gap in what we need for cyber. And I say we, the government, but also all of industry. There's a huge gap. I mean, I've heard as big as 400,000 people they need to fill cyber jobs. And all you need is, and there's a lot of free training. The work I did with the Cyberspace Solarium Commission was identifying a lot of resources for free training and low-cost certifications. I mean, I just did a search the other night of what are the top 5 certifications for someone trying to get into cyber.
Okay.
And they laid it right out. So I sent the link to my son. I said, and he's 34, so it's just like he's transitioning. And we talked about on some of the work groups with the Solarium Commission was not just, we got to get them young, middle school, if not earlier. And it's cyber hygiene, cyber awareness, protect yourself. What are the basics? And then you move them up as they go through the high school. And the internships in high school, we've run a couple of internships the last 2 years. They will have some more next year. Workforce development was you can run 2 events a year. Well, they didn't define it any more than that. And nobody's paying us extra for more. Now, what we do is we then work with other agencies to say, we work with the NSA's HR department. And they identify some interns, and we bring them in there for the summer. The SETI program, which I don't have time to talk about and get into too much detail, but that was the one that they work with historically Black colleges, but it's expanded beyond that. There's internships through that. There's internships with the military, senior military colleges. So numerous things that are going on there that you can get internships. Yes, keep an eye open. Go to those websites. Yeah, go to those websites. Keep an eye out for that kind of thing. And then we'd love to have it.
Awesome.
So Scott, couple of things. The first is can the slide deck be shared?
Yes, that's it's a little old, and but yes, it can be shared. It was approved through PAO. It's a lot of work to get out and talk with you guys. But thank you for your patience. I'm glad you got to me early. I've got somebody that when they come in like 3 days, I love to do them. But I have to get higher up approval. Who are you going to speak to? What is going to be there? And what are we going to be held accountable for if you say something? Is there going to be reporters? Is it recorded? Where's it going? So that deck I gave you was approved. Yes, you can share it.
Okay. And then the next question was, do you work with blockchain?
Do I personally work with blockchain?
Well,
no.
Meaning, or maybe it's the question here in the chat is, do you work with blockchain? So I'm assuming that's referring to Cyber Command.
So what I will do is say that in the challenges, I believe blockchain is one of those challenges.
Got it.
Remember, I'll tell you what I can tell you, and I'll tell you what I can't tell you. So
no, I understand. This is Betty Harvey with
Hi, Betty.
Blackstone Defense. So that's one of the challenges, and maybe we can discuss it more offline. But one of the challenges is to bring this cryptocurrency blockchain world of crazy but very innovative people who dislike government and regulation together with the government who could use blockchain for so many different things, from financial transactions to incident reporting. And that's something we're very interested in.
So yes, blockchain is interest to many of us in the cyber world.
Okay. So are there any other questions that we have? You can either feel free to take yourself off mute and ask the question, or you can place it here in the chat that we're actively following. And so,
Leonardo, I have.
Okay.
Leonardo, hi, it's Ed Roberts from CCBC. I have a question for Scott. Scott, can you just go over again about the internship activity? I work for the Community College of Baltimore County, and we have students coming out of our Computer Science, Cybersecurity Institute, Information Technology areas, trying to help them get entry level and internships, apprenticeships. And they're coming out with industry certifications.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And those are great folks. So this last year, I think we had 44, and they came from all over the country because we were in COVID. So we still ran it, but it was all virtual. So monitor the website. It'll come out on that either missy.tech or dreamport.tech. Missy, again, is the nonprofit company that we deal with, and they have their own activities and so forth. It's the Dreamport aspect has to be kind of okayed as long as it's within the cyber thing, and they give us a word they're going to do X, and we know where who's paying for it. Then they're kind of free to execute on that. Under Dreamport, under Missy has a bit more freedom in that they're a company, an entity of themselves. And that's on by design. So that's why I say I would keep aware of, register at Missy and so forth, and with Dreamport, and they'll get that information out. Yes, and they're going to scale it up. Especially, like I said, that SETI, CEDI was the acronym for that, and that's growing, and that's because that has such huge interest. Okay, thanks. Good question, Ed.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Same here.
Any additional questions, either in the chat or that you want to verbalize yourself? Okay, well,
Leonardo, they're so polite and behaved. I don't think there's just not enough coffee going on here. We need to infuse coffee, something. I know it's early, but hey. Oh, okay, yeah, Ed's drinking.
We got one here, so I think Adrian had a question.
Hi, Adrian.
Hello. My question is about opportunities to bid. You go to USCYBERCOM homepage to find about those opportunities. Are there forecasts and things like that put out there that people can see?
So if you're talking like bidding on contracts and bidding on things that they put out there, I would just strongly suggest you use the standard government things they put out contracts on if you're going to bid for them. That's not necessarily what I was doing. We're going outside the FAR-based process. We may end up there at the end, but we have jumped a bunch of steps, was the whole point of Dreamport and some of the things that we do. So when you're talking straight contracts and bidding on them, then you got to use, FedRAMP and all of those other different aspects that the normal acquisition process.
But you mentioned NSA. NSA, they have their ARC, their special. Yep. Where they advertise their contract opportunities. Mm-hmm. Does USCYBERCOM go through the ARC?
They don't use the ARC. That is an NSA construct and service. They go through, because remember, Cybercom is a DoD. I mean, Cybercom is also DoD, but it's a true military command. And so it uses the military acquisition processes and tools.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Hey, Tawana.
Good morning. I just wanted to follow up on my question about challenge.gov. Challenge.gov is where the public compete to help the U.S. government to solve problems big or small, and they can win cash prizes. So you'll see a lot of cybersecurity related challenges, and you can win up to $1 million or so, and then they can use that money to take their prototype from the garage to global. So that when you mentioned challenge, that's why I mentioned challenge. So just wanted to clarify that there's money out there to win.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. I was not aware of it. I think it's a great thing. Unfortunately, the government is a large and complex place that the right hand doesn't always know what the left hand's doing. And, like CYBERS, that was one of the questions earlier. It is a great program. I went to our acquisition folks and they looked at me beleagueredly and said, if I had the resources and time, I would love to do that for you. I do not. Come back later. And it was just like, okay, the service cyber components use it. The services have their own innovation centers that leverage CYBERS. So CYBERS are being used in this space, but from my little corner of the world looking out, we're not at that point yet.
And also what I did is I placed in the chat, I went to challenge.gov while we were here and ultimately put the link there for those of you that also may not be familiar with it. And also just a quick, just a brief sentence or two that kind of describes exactly what it does. And so feel free to take a look at that. So any other additional thoughts or questions? And if not, one thing that for those that know me, I don't believe in just holding you just for the sake of meeting the time that was on the flyer. And so if I can give you a portion of your morning or your day back, I certainly will. So first thing is, Scott, I want to thank you for joining us and sharing your insights with us today. And hopefully for all of you that had an opportunity to attend and participate, that you got some good information that you'll be able to go back and subsequently be able to use. Also, let's see here, hopefully everyone can see the screen here, but want to also just continue to recognize also our annual partners as well for their support this morning, again, which was led by Tower Federal Credit Union and Kat Zabosh. Again, want to thank them. Also, our breakfast sponsors in Polera Matzah and Training by Design. And then again, want to just continue to mention here the upcoming, and actually there's two things, one that's not mentioned. So obviously you can see here the cyber risk management series is on the 25th, but actually next week is our Scale Up series. And Scale Up is one of the programs that we do particularly for growing government contractors. And next week, we're going to be talking about infrastructure investment. And so I believe the date is specifically the 17th. It's during the lunchtime hour, or really, I guess I shouldn't say lunchtime anymore, because when you're at home, it could be at any time, the noontime hour. But we're going to be talking about infrastructure investments. And as you grow, at what point, particularly the decisions that you have to make, whether that's from an accounting standpoint, HR, personnel, your owner, when do you stop, when do you move from perhaps, president and CEO to maybe your CEO and you hire a president? When have you taken the business as far as you can take it? All of those things that you have to deal with in terms of growing and when you are growing. And so that's next week. Again, you can see here the 25th on the cyber risk management, as well as also the state of business. And so again, just want to continue to thank all of you for joining us this morning. And with that, I'll make sure that you receive a copy of the slide deck. And again, have a great day. And lastly, I would say if you're here and you're not a member of the chamber and you certainly enjoyed what you heard this morning, there's much more from where this comes from, and want to invite you to join the chamber. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.